All right. Good afternoon. I guess it is technically afternoon. So today we're going to talk about co-bullying, and then I'm going to end this with some real talk about what you can really do about workplace bullying. So let's talk about this idea of co-bullying. Lots of times when you're in the workplace, you have more than one bully. If I look back on all the places I was bullied, most of the time there were co-bullies or partners in crime. Lots of times the kind of accepted term for co-bullying is mobbing. Okay, that's the technical term that people use to refer to having more than one bully. I've never liked the term mobbing because I think that the idea that you get in your head when you hear that term is you see a big crowd of people, being openly not subtle, in your face, kind of mocking and criticizing and going after somebody. And a lot of times it's associated with, where you have crowds of people who are just really going after something or someone. And the reason I don't like the term is merely because of that visualization. That's not generally how co-bullying, or when you have more than one bully in your workplace, actually works. It's much more subtle, it's much more covert, and it's much more, frankly, cutthroat than having a mob of people come after you. And co-bullying, when I'm talking about co-bullying, I'm talking about having one or more active bully who is abusing you in the workplace, because we know that bystanders can sometimes be involved, and that's different than having two or more people who are actively bullying. Let me give you just a couple of examples. So when I look back at one particular place I worked, there were about 4 bullies. Not bystanders, because there were a lot of bystanders who were actively and aggressively doing the bidding of the bullies, but there were 4 people that I would identify as the primary bullies in that department. And I want to talk about one in particular who I see as the primary bully, if that makes sense. This was somebody who was very nice to your face. In Minnesota, they called it Minnesota nice. So always smiling, always pleasant to your face. And yet when you turned your back, that person was, the one throwing knives in your back. She was the one who would get people to do things so that her hands were not directly involved, but she was the one who was behind the scenes encouraging people to do things. In fact, this should have been a sign for me, because when I interviewed, again, this person asked me about my marital status, if I had kids, and other personal questions that were, at that time at least, were illegal to ask in an interview. Again, that's a red flag that there are problems in the workplace if they're asking you those things. And it went a little bit like this. Oh, I know I'm not supposed to ask you this, but I'm just going to. Red flag 1, I just brushed it off. And so she's very nice to your face. But because she had been socialized, she was a woman, she'd been socialized into being nice, always wanted to be seen as, kind of the goody two-shoes. But I'm telling you that is the person I have decided was the one who was pulling everybody's strings and pushing people, both bullies, the co-bullies she had, and bystanders. And she was able to get away with a lot of things, again, because she had that mask of nicety. When she put that on, then that was her distancing herself from the bullying. And she often had people doing her bidding because the payoff for her was the pain that was happening to me. And she got a watch knowing that not only did I suffer, but she got people to do her work. So when I'm talking about co-bullying, mobbing doesn't fit, because other than the time where I had the one bully come around the table at me, most of the bullying was subtle, covert. It wasn't in your face like a mob. And do I think that she did a lot more damage than a mob could to me? Absolutely. So the problem, if you're being bullied, that having a co-bully or partners in crime and bullying, it makes it more complicated for you, because the more bullies you have, meaning the more aggressors and abusers you have in the workplace, the more difficult it is to navigate. And so let's talk about navigating workplace bullying or managing workplace bullying, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to what can you do if you're being bullied. You can do more than document, report, and leave. And you know, that's a huge pet peeve of mine, where people are telling you that you have to leave. That's not true. Sometimes that's the best option for people, not always. And plus, you get to make that determination yourself. It's not my place to tell you what you should or should not be doing in the workplace. As an expert in workplace bullying, when you work with me, we work together on your goals of what it is that you want to do. And yeah, that can change overnight. So what? You're still in charge, and you still have the power to control what you do in the workplace. But let's talk about this idea of navigating, because I think that a lot of people who are being bullied, just like I did, think that somebody's going to come in and stop it. Yeah, that's always our goal, is to get somebody to stop it. But in the meantime, what are you going to do? You have really two choices. You can do something, or you can just keep acting and doing what you're doing right now, which is very likely unsuccessful. And you're trying things and they're not working. And one of the, how we often get stuck as people who are being bullied is that we keep doing the same thing over and over and over, thinking something else is going to happen. When I was being bullied, I kept reporting. I documented and I reported. I kept thinking that HR or my boss was going to do something about it, until my boss started bullying me, and then the light bulb went on, like, yeah, nobody's coming in to save you. First off, you don't need saving. So you can keep doing the same thing over and over, right? You can keep reacting the way you're reacting and not de-escalating, not using strategy. I know people don't like the S word, but you can keep doing what you're doing and have it not work, okay? Or you can change the pattern. You can do something different, even if it's not monumental, okay? It doesn't, again, most of the things that I tried when I was being bullied were not monumental things. They were small changes in how I reacted. And one of the things I did is I stopped reacting. I started to think before I did things. Is this to my benefit? Do I need to respond to this? So the first thing you have to do across the board, I don't care if you're being harassed, I don't care if you're being discriminated against, I don't care if you're being bullied, if you have one bully, if you have 5 bullies, you have to develop a way to keep steady or keep grounded, okay? Personally, I don't like the word grounded and I don't like the word steady, but you need to keep yourself in control. That's what it is. You have to stay in control. And why is that so important? And why do I say it over and over and over like a broken record? Because once you lose control of your emotions, then the next steps often become muddled and become reactions. They don't become fine-tuned strategies to take down or shut down the bullying or get out of those places or protect yourself. You have to stay grounded and in control so your next move can protect yourself. That's the first thing. And if you can't have one grounding strategy. Okay, I'll give you an example from my personal life. My siblings trigger me like there's no tomorrow. Okay, and I don't even talk to them anymore, but I have already set in my mind ways that I can effectively keep myself grounded and in control if I ever have to have another conversation with them. Okay, because once they get to me, they've won. If I let them push my emotional buttons, just like when I let my bully push my emotional buttons and I reacted, they win. Hey, well, we're in the business here at Stop Bully Culture of bullies don't get to win. They might have to keep on bullying, but they don't get to win when you stay in control, because then your reactions become precise, they become precisions, they become effectively workplace self-defense mechanisms. So you have to stay grounded. Now let me just give you a little caveat on that. You're not going to be able to stay grounded all the time because you're going to make mistakes. You don't have to have perfection. If you lose it sometimes, so what? You can't beat yourself up for responding in a situation or reacting in a situation that is abusive and not normal in the workplace. Okay? Nobody expects perfection, but you do need to keep yourself in control. That is the main thing. Because once you lose control, bullies win. And we're not having bullies win. The other thing that happens when you're being bullied is you think you can manage it by yourself. Okay? You think that, you know what, I'm an adult, I should be able to do this. This shouldn't be getting to me. Bullshit. Okay? You're not in a normal workplace. And frankly, the strategies that I use, frankly, everybody should be utilizing because they're good in conflict situations. They're good in toxicity. They're good with people who are harassing you or discriminatory against you. And they're especially effective with people who are being bullied. Because you can't go into an abusive workplace and think that you're going to be able to handle and manage that alone. You're not. Okay? You need somebody who can hear what you're saying and understand, which brings me to my next point, which is you need somebody to understand what you're going through. Now, I'm going to give you some personal reflection on my own personal life and how many people I talked to about being bullied and who understood what I was going through. So I talked to my kids. Did they understand? No, they didn't believe me. Now, I usually talk about one, but I know the other two didn't either. Okay, my own children didn't believe that I was being bullied. Neither did my siblings or my parents. Okay, and nobody ever asked me about it. Nobody ever asked how I was doing in that situation. Nobody asked if I was coping. I had a job. I was putting food on my table, and that's all the further my family cared about what I was doing. Right? I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. It didn't make any difference if I was going into a workplace that was being verbally abusive, that was gaslighting me, that was attacking my credibility and my reputation, let alone have physical intimidation on more than one occasion. So I didn't have anybody in my home. I didn't have anybody in my family. The only person I had that really understood what I was going through was another person who was being bullied at the same time. And we got together to support each other. That was the only person who never once said to me, you know, Jan, maybe you should leave. Well, what are you doing to cause that to happen? How are you reacting to that? Right? Victim blaming me. She never, to this day, has never accused me of being the problem in a situation where there was bullying. Why? Because she was in the same boat as I was, and she knew exactly what was happening. She knew exactly what I was experiencing, and therefore the judgment piece was gone, right? Even to this day, if I need somebody to have my back, she has mine and I have hers because we developed a relationship that is stronger than anything. I consider her to be my family because of how supportive she's been over the years. So that is important. In fact, I was talking to somebody the other day who was telling me, listing out all of the people they had confided in about the situation of bullying that they had experienced, right? And one of the things that really struck out when this person said this to me was they said, I went to my therapist, right? They paid a therapist to talk to them about workplace bullying, and I quote back what they said, the therapist said, I don't believe you, unquote. Again, your job as a therapist is neither to believe or disbelieve. Your job as a therapist is to help and be supportive. And the fact that they paid a therapist is not only unethical of the therapist, it's just damn wrong. So we're trusting people to listen to us who don't have any idea of what workplace bullying is. So yeah, therapists, if you need help on dealing with workplace bullying, the likelihood that you're dealing with it yourself is pretty good. Secondly, don't tell people you don't believe them if you don't know what workplace bullying is. That's unethical. And frankly, that should have been reported to the licensing board. So that behavior can stop. So you have to have somebody who can listen to you and not blame you or judge you or tell you that it's your fault. Why is that so important? Because that's part of how you get off. That's how you can deal with the bully better, when you know that you're not the problem, that they are the problem. The system is the problem. And how you can protect yourself is the first step, is understanding that you didn't do anything to cause the bullying. You're not responsible for it. There's nothing about you, right? You didn't have a weird personality or anything like that. And even if you did, so what? Okay? You're not a cause of the bullying. The bully is the cause, and the system allows it. That is why it's so important, because if you don't believe that and you're going to your family and they're telling you, oh, what are you doing, Jan? Then what that is that's confirming that you're the problem. If you go to your therapist and they say, I don't believe you, it's confirming that you're the problem. When you have somebody who understands what it's like to be in your shoes, that's a different experience. Okay? So you have to stay grounded. You have to have grounding techniques. Okay? You have to have somebody who really listens to you. You need to find that person. And if you can't find somebody, I can be your support person. And the other thing, you have to have effective strategies to do two things. You have to be able to protect yourself. So you have to know when to de-escalate. You have to know when to walk away. And you have to know when it is. There are times when you need to confront and, call stuff out. You need to know when to do that, how to do it, and when is the safest time to do that. And again, because we're often just reacting in the moment, we're not thinking about those things. We're not thinking about, I'm getting sick and tired of being interrupted in meetings, and I keep calling it out and it's not working. Yeah, no wonder it's not working, because you're continuing to do it, and how you're doing it might not be effective, right? So you have to have effective ways to shut down bullying. And the way you do that is that those things don't come naturally to us. Those things are not innate. Those are learned skills. Just like how we learn how to deal with conflict, that's not innate. In fact, many times, how we learn to deal with conflict is from our family members, which is often dysfunctional, and we have to relearn those in the workplace. And there are skills to deal with bullies that you can learn that are effective. And they're not that hard. That's the thing. And again, I like to use the term workplace self-defense, because we have to stop looking at workplace bullying as if it's just document, report, and leave. There are lots of things, again, that you can protect yourself via workplace self-defense that can help you shut down the bullying and keep yourself protected. Again, you can go on my website at shop.stopbullyculture.com. First step right there on my shop website is a workplace self-defense system. It really has everything you need to better protect yourself from bullies. It has playbook 1 is documentation. Yes, I like documentation. I'm sorry. But I don't like documentation because you're going to report. I like documentation because it's your evidence to how you can better respond. And then it has playbook 2 and 3, which are verbal and written responses, right? How can you, if I keep getting emails from my bully saying, changing up what I'm supposed to be doing, I have templates and ideas for you as to how you can respond to that. I have verbal scripts that you can use to confront your bully. I go from neutral to moderate to confrontational. And it is a great way for you to respond to bullying in a way that does 2 things that I think are the most important. Is it protects you, and you have a better chance, okay, if you use strategies that help protect your reputation and your credibility, that if you do want to report or you do want to take additional action, you can do that with my system. It helps you document and it helps you respond in a way that's effective. So I highly recommend that you get it, right? And if you are interested in, if you're interested in working with me long term, I also have coaching. And I highly, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I highly recommend that you at least consider it, because it's worth it. And not only are you going to have somebody listen to you, you're also going to walk away with strategies and ideas and ways to protect yourself at the same time while dealing with and managing and healing from the toxicity and the long-term effects of workplace bullying. So anyway, we started off with co-bullying. I'm sorry, I was kind of wound up today. I had some things happening, and I appreciate your letting me spend this time with you. Again, if there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you haven't gone to my website at stopbullyculture.com, there are tons and tons of available resources for you to learn more about bullying. And so thank you for being here, and I will